DTFF.
Once again, here is Drinking and Talking Fantasy Football with your hosts, Dustin and Jake Trowbridge.
Hey, welcome back to the Drinking and Talking Fantasy Football Podcast. Good evening, everyone. Your host, Dustin Lunt, is here, back at it again, along with me, my co-host, my DTFF best buddy, Jacob Trowbridge. Jake, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing so good now that we have kicked this thing off. It's been brutal. It's been a brutal day of work, but on the tail end of it, I get to come hang out and talk fantasy football with you. So it made the day much improved.
That's right. Talking fantasy football always makes the day better, no matter what kind of day you had. So I'm right there with you. I'm excited for this. We've got a great show. We're bringing back, I'm assuming by popular demand.
Oh, yeah.
Can we say that? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, for sure. We
just
can
in our
say it.
heads?
Doesn't matter if it's accurate or not.
Yes. So back by popular demand, we are doing DTFF's Believe It or Not, where we'll give you some scenarios, talk about some players. Do we think this is going to happen, or is it just not going to happen? Believe it
Is it a
or
pipe
not.
dream?
Yeah. Do we believe it or don't we? So that's going to be the show tonight. It should be a lot of fun. Before we get into that, though, let's take a couple minutes here as we're wont to do from time to time and let our homerism come out. But how fucking crazy was that Packers Bengals game? The end of that, like that was, what was there, 5 missed field goals in the span of like 7 minutes of game time? Like it was fucking crazy.
It was outrageous. The duel of who could lose the game between Evan McPherson and Mason Crosby had us on the edge of our seats. We were watching the game together, and every time, Mason, all reliable for Green Bay, would line up and he'd miss the kick left every single time.
Every time.
And just by a hair. And then
I felt like a Vikings fan.
Oh, that's what that feels like? That sucks.
Except we ended up winning the game, so it was fine. But
we did.
But it was just that just like, not having the confidence. Hopefully this is not a sign of things to come for Mason. I know he hit the game winner in the end, which was great to see. But yeah, that was terrifying on so many levels because that game should have never gotten to overtime. I feel like we should have beat them, not handedly, but I feel like we should have beat them. So going to overtime and winning in that fashion, while exhilarating, was not exactly how I want to win every single week here.
Stressful, man. It's stressful to be put through that, but also very exciting. And, that is what football is about. Let's be honest.
It's right.
It's about those exciting last second finishes, however they come, even if it's with some ridiculous kicker fails in that manner. Still fun.
That's right. So let's move on. I see what you're drinking there, Jake. We're not sharing a beer this week, or sharing. We make it sound like we split a beer and share. No, we're not drinking the same beer this evening. Let's put it that way.
Correct.
Just I think because we're both busy and somewhat lazy and just didn't get around to getting a beer for this week. So we each got our own. Back to the early COVID days where we didn't want to share anything. So right. I'm drinking Capital Brewery Oktoberfest. Can't see anything with my light, but yeah.
It's got that intense light on it, that spotlight action.
But yeah, it's just a tasty, solid Oktoberfest that I drink every single year because it's just good.
You're Mr. Oktoberfest. Like that is, when I think of beer, I mean, we drink a lot of different beers, obviously, but that is the style that I attribute to you every single time.
It's so good.
Where does the Capital rank in your Oktoberfest rankings there? Do you have an unofficial ranking for it?
It would be in my upper tier. If I had to tier, it would probably be like my
perfect
tier 2, I guess. Don't ask me what my tier 1 is. I couldn't tell you. I just know it's not necessarily the best one I've ever had, but it's a very solid, very reliable, very good beer.
All right. That's fair.
And they're only going to be around for a short while longer here. So I got to drink them while I can.
Yeah. Oktoberfest season really only lasts like a month and a half before they start to just fade away. So I appreciate that. I have a backup as my Oktoberfest is my backup from Founders, but I
Nice.
am leading off with a different Founders, which is their breakfast stout, which I know that you love. I
So
love it
good.
as well. It's cold finally, so I feel like I can have a nice dark beer now. It's nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had a nice dark beer this weekend. We're going to continue to talk beer for a minute. At one of our local taverns, I had a 2019 Imperial Stout that was with vanilla bean. Oh, it was so good. So smooth. It was, and it clocked in at 12.8%, which was amazing as well. It was so good.
Thick like the Dickens, I'd bet,
Mhm.
at that 12% range.
Oh, yeah, it was awesome. So I suppose enough about beers. Jake, do you want to lead off this next section, our beer bet payout from last week?
If you're going to allow me the honor,
I
of course
will.
I would. Of course I would. So, as we are wont to do now, we have this weekly beer bet payout. I am guessing we're going to make one at the end of this episode as well. But
Chances are good.
From the end of last week's episode, we went straight up Antonio Gibson versus Alvin Kamara in points per reception. You were kind enough, I'm going to say, to allow me to take Alvin Kamara. So Saints, Washington went up against each other, as this process typically leads us that way.
Yep.
Antonio Gibson ended up with 21.2 fantasy points on the day,
Pretty
saved
respectable.
by an amazing touchdown there, by
Yes.
the way. But very respectable. Yeah, no shame in that. It's just that Alvin Kamara came through with 29.2 fantasy points, looking like vintage Alvin Kamara, which is, of course, what I was hoping for when we made this little wager. Happy to see that be the case.
I'm glad you're happy. I would, you know what? I would take that bet again. I think the process was right on it. But Kamara just ended up coming through for, not any reason, but, because it is what Kamara does. He is a very good back, but I liked my process going into that bet last week. So I would take Gibson again, figuring the chances for me to winning that would be very good. So,
maybe we can tack that on to the end of the episode. We'll run it back. We'll run the bet back and see. We'll see.
All right. So I do have a shot here to do, doing something different because I'm all out of Fireball, believe it or not.
Okay.
I'm actually going to have to go to the liquor store and buy a bottle of Fireball.
You don't have to do that.
20?
You don't have to do that to yourself.
Well, I don't know if I can continue to do this. So I've got a local whiskey from Old Sugar Distillery.
Love it.
They do not your traditional whiskeys and brandies and stuff there. They're kind of use alternative grains and things like that. So this is the Queen Jenny, and this is sorghum whiskey. So
is that like gum?
No. Well, I
don't know
think
what
they
it
use
is.
sorghum. I don't know. It's a grain. Sorghum is a grain that can
the
be
more
used.
You know.
I think it gets used a lot in the South in their cooking as kind of like a grits alternative. It's like a cereal grain. So yeah, so that's what this. It's made from 100% sorghum from Wisconsin, so it's a total local product. Smells like whiskey.
Let's hope it tastes a little better than the average whiskey going down.
Here's hoping. So Jake, you are an amazing fantasy football prognosticator / genius. Congratulations.
Those words warm my heart, as I am sure this whiskey will warm your belly.
Yeah, not too bad.
All right. As a shot, that goes down all right for you.
Yeah,
it's
not something that I said I want to do on a regular basis here. Because doing whiskey shots are not my thing. But
yeah, I mean, that's not like Black Velvet or something, it's not like one of those super low grade whiskeys, at least.
No. So. It was very smooth. It went down very smooth. It didn't have that burn like your cheap whiskeys do. It was a very smooth whiskey. You can tell it's a well done one. Just not something I want to shoot. So.
All right, fair enough. Well, at least Old Sugar made your experience a little bit better with that payoff. But we can divert our attention away from your drinking for a moment as we shift into our favorite segment.
Drunk, hammered drunk.
Drunk trade. of the week.
So before you get going, Jake, on that,
Mhm.
I just had a realization watching the drunk trade graphic you made.
Yeah,
There
yeah.
was one where drunk was spelled backwards, and I was like, what's Knerd? I was like, the whole time, like, what the fuck is that? I'm like, I just realized it was drunk backwards. Been doing the show now or we've had the drop for what, almost a year and a half now.
I think so. Pretty close.
And I finally got it. Finally.
That's a fun little Easter egg in there that you're able to scrounge up on the 99th viewing. So, I mean, that's deep. It's a deep one.
Yeah. So congratulations, Jake.
I'm
More
glad
you
I
know.
could. I'm glad I could make your day a little bit with that. All right, this week's drunk trade is a special one, and I'm calling it the almost drunk trade of the week. Not because the person involved was almost drunk, but because the trade almost happened, but at the last minute did not. So that's what I want to.
You were drunk, though.
I was drunk. Spoiler alert, I'm the submitter for this week's episode. I had to get this one in here. Dustin, I already texted you a screenshot of this one. I think that was yesterday morning, letting you know what I'd gotten here. But I was at my brother's wedding this weekend, having a great time, enjoying that open bar as much as a person reasonably can, while still maintaining, certain levels of respectability. And while I was doing so, my other co-host from Ball Blast, one of them, Michelle Majuk, sent me this trade. And the only reason I don't want people to think I'm checking Sleeper while I'm at my brother's wedding, but I got a text from her literally saying, accept my trade offer. And
so it seems a little pushy.
You forgot to mention
this.
Yeah, you could go into your trades a little bit nicer, I think, in general, just as a hot tip for listeners there. If it was anybody but Michelle, I would have just deleted it sight unseen. But in any case, the trade itself, I would have been sending away Deebo Samuel. I would have been receiving George Kittle and Carson Wentz. Now, this league, it's a 12-team dynasty league, and it's a super flex tight end premium. So Carson Wentz, well, in a regular league, a one quarterback league, of course, meh. In Superflex, any starting quarterback becomes a valuable piece. And then there's George Kittle.
He's been a decent QB2 in a Superflex league.
Yeah, he's somebody that you can smash in there, get 14 points and feel okay, at the end of the day. So, not to rehash this too much on your end, but you told me it looks good on paper, but you wouldn't be able to do it. And I felt the same. So why Deebo over Kittle and Wentz for you?
Yeah, I agree. Looking at it on paper, like it should be a smash accept. Like, oh yeah, you're getting who is considered one of the top 3 tight ends in the NFL when healthy. And then Carson Wentz, as you said, in a super flex league, a serviceable number 2 with QB 1 week upside to him. I mean, we've seen it before. He hasn't been able to put it all together yet this year in that new offense, but I mean, you've seen some flashes here and there from him. But Deebo, I mean, one, that's my guy. It's my drinking buddy. I've been on Deebo, banging that drum all off season for him. And I just love the way that he's being used in the offense right now with the Niners. I mean, he is the number 1 receiving option in that offense. Kittle's been hurt. He just went on IR for a few weeks here. I think the short-term IR. So you're already, and I know we're talking dynasty, so we're not just talking for this year, but I've been kind of souring on both Wentz and Kittle as the season has progressed here. Kittle is always dinged up. He's always injured. And as we've said 100 times, the best ability is availability. So if he's going to be on your IR, on your bench, not scoring points because he's injured, that doesn't help you. And Carson Wentz, while I was really big on him a couple years ago, and I really thought this change of scenery here would really help him and we'd see at least progression over last year. And while he is doing better than he did last year, No doubt about it. Last year was a fucking train wreck. I still haven't really seen that upside that, I think we all anticipated with the weapons he has on that offense. I know the offensive line has been a little dinged up. He's lost, a couple of his pieces there. The wide receiver group has been a little bit dinged up. He's been dinged up, getting bones removed from his feet. So it's just, I've been sour on both of them for different reasons. So at this point with the production, I would keep Debo.
Yeah, so that's what I ended up doing. Now, I did try going back to counter with a little something. Tried to figure out what the valuation is on her side for Carson Wentz, because in trade negotiations, that's really important, right? Like, especially in Dynasty, where I might want to be trading for a pick instead of Carson Wentz, because this is the league where I had Russell Wilson as my only viable starting quarterback option. I am rebuilding. That is official now with Russell Wilson going out. That's what's happening in that league for right now, for this year. So George Kittle, I can accept him on, understanding that he's going to be on IR. That's no big deal for me. But the bigger issue is, what does Carson Wentz do beyond this year?
Right.
Is he a starting option beyond this year? How long until he fizzles? With George Kittle's health, how long can he stay healthy when playing the way that he plays? We talk all the time, and of course, good friend of the show, Edwin Porras, would probably he'd give me one of these for saying this, but I don't believe in injury prone, but I believe in players who play hard enough to get injured a lot, and that is George Kittle. So he's only 28, and I'm sure there's good years, good games left for him. But Debo, I loved what I had there. So I tried to counter to get a first and George Kittle and added on to my side a couple of win now pieces. Not great, amazing pieces by any ways, but for this year, very helpful, and chucked on a couple of thirds to try and balance it out. It was a no-go. I think that means that she did not value Carson Wentz that high either, so makes sense. Ultimately, no trade came of this. We might revisit down the road. We'll see. But yeah, man, you're going to have to pry Debo from me at this point. He's too good.
Yeah, and he's still young. It's only, his third year in the league. So, I mean, he's still a very young receiver. And if he's going to continue to be the focal point of that offense, and as we kind of talked about, or as I talked about in our off-season shows here, he gets used close to the line of scrimmage, and so he gets all that yak, he gets all that yardage after catching the ball, or they give him sweeps and run the ball. So, I mean, he's used in a, multitude of ways. And while, Ayuk has been getting more and more involved in the offense as the weeks have gone on, you still haven't seen that production match that. So while he's maybe on the field more, Debo is still the one that's getting all that production. So as long as that's happening, you got to hang on to Debo.
That sweet, sweet production, that nectar of fantasy football. Yeah, so I think that means that we are both Debo over George Kittle, obviously for dynasty purposes. So that would be our rankings, I think, if it shook out today, right?
Yep, absolutely. Woo! So good on you for being rational and declining that trade.
It's not always easy. I think I can thank the DJ at the wedding on that Saturday night, because I didn't even have time to think about it and process it. And, if it was a lesser DJ, I might have been sitting at a table for a little longer and got the itchy finger. So way to go, DJ. Way to save me.
Nice job, DJ. All right, Jake, do you want to do a quick read from our ad sponsor before we get into the heart of our episode here?
You betcha. This week's episode of DTFF is brought to you by Poor Richard's Farm. They offer 100% grass-fed beef snack sticks. They're a Wisconsin family farm. They use all natural ingredients, and they don't use fillers or artificial preservatives. Look, we've had these, we've talked about these ad nauseum, and we're going to continue to do so because they're that delicious. We've tried all the varieties at this point: barbecue hickory, teriyaki maple, Tex-Mex mesquite, and of course the OG original flavor. They're amazing. They use real hardwood chips. The flavor comes through. Right now, listeners can get 5% off their order if they head on over to poorrichardsfarm.com and use promo code DTFF at checkout. You also get free shipping if you buy 3 or more packs, That's the obvious way to go. You're going to get halfway through pack 1 and wonder why you didn't order 20 of these things. So do yourself a favor. Head over to poorrichardsfarm.com, promo code DTFF.
Yeah, I'm actually on their website right now, going to be ordering more as we speak.
Oh, yeah.
Because they are delicious. So, yes, not only are they a sponsor, but we truly believe in their product. So go support them because they're awesome.
Yeah, your game day is going to be much better for it. Trust me.
All right, so here we go. Let's get into this, Jake. What do you say?
Let's freaking do it, man.
All right, so it's time for DTFF's Believe It or Not.
Believe it or not, we're walking on air.
Oh, don't sing anymore. Don't sing anymore. We'll have to pay for it.
Fair enough. I don't want to get us into trouble with the Believe It or Not people. I don't even know who sings that song, but we would find out via a sternly worded letter, I bet.
That's right. So, Jake.
Christopher in the chat real quick wants to say cheers from Germany. Oh, excuse me, Christoph. Christoph, cheers back to you, sir,
Prost.
In Germany.
Prost, as they say.
Hey. God damn, you're so impressive sometimes, Dustin.
Sometimes. All right. So, Jake, curious, you've got the first one on here, or I'll let you go first. Let's put it that way. Yeah, you did most of the show sheet. I'll give you credit here. But why don't you lead us off here?
Yeah, so we're going to lay out some scenarios here for what could happen for the rest of season. And it's a very simple concept. Do we agree / believe it? Or do we not / not? So this first one here, Derek Carr finishes as a top 12 quarterback for fantasy football purposes. Now, a little prelude here. If you recall the first 3 weeks, Derek Carr looked fantastic. He played Baltimore, he played Pittsburgh, he played Miami. Aside from that last one, did not appear to be gimme defenses coming into the season. He averaged 45 pass attempts and 400 passing yards per game in that first 3 stretch. 1,200 yards in those first 3 games. That's insane. Last 2 games, however, against the Chargers, against the Bears, that average pass attempt number dropped to 35 from 45 and 200 yards as opposed to 400 yards. Now, he's had 2 touchdowns in every single game except for the last one against Chicago. But he's moved down the ranks a little bit. He's quarterback 14 currently. So is there hope for him to come back, climb into the top 12?
You know what? If we were talking about this yesterday in the middle of the day or Sunday, I would have went for a definite yes. But now with this Chucky news, the head coach, there's going to be a lot of turmoil with the team. And I know sometimes teams tend to rally around each other and will, perform better and kind of have this us against the world mentality, when something like that happens. I'm not really sure, though. I mean, this really, we haven't been able to see how the team performs with their interim head coach yet. I mean, obviously this was big news we didn't talk about, but John Gruden resigned as head coach. If you hadn't heard now, just go check it out on Twitter. That's all I'm going to really say about that. But so I think he can, though. I think in the end of the day, their offense is not going to change. I wouldn't expect it to. Let's put it that way. I mean, you still have Darren Waller, who is a stud tight end.
Of course.
Brian Edwards, he's looked good in flashes.
Hunter Renfrow, man.
Hunter Renfrow.
He's having himself
solid.
A bit of a resurgence. Yeah.
I mean, and then when you look at their schedule for the rest of the season, they've got some decent matchups. They've got the Giants coming up. KC will be a shootout. Cincinnati, their defense is improving, but still vulnerable. Washington hasn't been as great as we'd hoped. They got KC 2 times, actually. Indianapolis. And then the last week is the Chargers, I believe. So, I mean, they've got some decent matchups here against softer defenses, or like I said, games that should be shootouts, or they're going to have to pass the ball a lot. So I think it's very well within the realm of possibility that he finishes as a top 12 quarterback. I'm going to say believe it.
You believe it. Dustin, I can believe it too. The reason I put top 12 there, he's of course had a couple of rough games in the past couple weeks. However, the guy has been on fire as an actual quarterback, not just even as a stat aggregator. He's actually been a respectable quarterback, I think. And there's no reason for them to change what had worked so well in those first 3 games. I don't think. And we're not head coaches here, but I don't expect that it would be a massive change with the switch. Of course, there could be some hinkiness there that makes us look foolish down the road. But I think for now, you're right. Now, I'm going to smash the believe it option as well on this one. So 2 believe it's for Derek Carr finishing as a top 12 quarterback. Did want to pop in here with a question from our chat. Bars in the tuck. I love that. I don't know what that is, but I have to research it and Google it now because that's a wonderful phrase. Left field question of the week. My league, it's a full PPR, gives points for return yards as well. Should I pick up Jamal Agnew since he's getting targets now, plus the Jags D to double up if he gets a return touchdown? So that's an interesting concept there. So doubling up with the return game potentially with Agnew. And again, what's nice there is it's not all obviously the returns. This is not just Devin Hester, although it'd still be amazing if you were getting return yards there. He's actually getting the target. So what do you think? Is he worth a pickup here? Let's assume it's a fairly medium bench.
No.
No.
Yeah, while he's getting targets, I think that's only because DJ Chark, is on IR and, their wide receiver depth is a little light. But Marvin Jones and Laviska Shenault should be getting the bulk of the receptions on that team. I would expect James Robinson to get a little bit more involved in the passing game too, although it's Urban Meyer, so who the fuck knows what's going on there. But that would be my expectation. Yeah, Agnew's going to get, some targets every week. He will be involved because, like I said, DJ Chark is out. So there needs to be a number 3 on that team, someone that's going to be playing on a regular basis. But I don't expect him to be a big part of that offense, honestly. Yeah, he might break one and maybe score a receiving touchdown or 2. Could he get a return touchdown? Absolutely. But honestly, why do you want to start the Jags defense?
I think that was the bigger question for me was, do I want to do both? No, absolutely not. And I don't want to do that double up with the Jags defense there. Now, 8 targets last week, though, for Jamal Agnew, but you raised the perfect point. It's a dearth of options. It shouldn't be. Marvin Jones should be getting those targets. Now, Agnew did run one back for a touchdown week 2, but we have to acknowledge that was an incredibly weird situation. Detroit went for a very, very long field goal, and he was able to take that back. So that was a little odd. You're not going to get that every week. If you're dire, though, man, you might have to. I want to throw this follow-up up. Said, I just put CEH on IR, so he has the free spot. Has the strangest feeling the Jags will try, in quotes, to use Agnew like ETN. I don't know about that portion of it. But I don't know about any portion of it because Urban Meyer is a fucking strange guy, man, like you said. So I'm ambivalent. I think there has to be a better option out there on waivers that's a little more sturdy for you. If you really want to shoot for some upside, I guess, in that return league. I don't know. I've never played in a league that counts those return yards, so you could give it a shot, I guess.
Yeah, if you're desperate, if you're looking for the high upside play and you have a good feeling about it, just go with your gut then. Who am I to say that you're wrong? But personally, I don't roll the dice that way in fantasy football unless I'm super, super desperate. If you're desperate and you need a win, then hey, go for it.
Freaking try it, man, because you're gonna be mad at yourself if you don't pick him up and then he returns one next week. And these couple of idiots on the screen told you not to do it. So yeah, do what makes you happy. One more quick one before we get into our next Believe It or Not. Matt in the chat says, how are you fellas tonight? Got a question. Should I dump Tannehill? He's been so shaky this year. Could pick up Burrow Kirk, or even Baker? If so, Dustin, what do you think?
My gut instinct says no, do not drop him. While yes, he's looked shaky. He's getting his best wide receiver back. AJ Brown is coming back. Julio will be coming back. Yeah, the offense has started pretty rough this season, but I expect that to turn around. That you have to remember they have another new offensive coordinator this year. So I'm sure there was some tweaks to that offense that just took a little bit of getting used to here. So I wouldn't jump ship on him quite yet. We've seen what he's done. He's been super efficient over the last few years. There's no reason that should really change. So I would hold out for another couple weeks here to see if, once he gets his wide receivers back and they kind of get into a rhythm, if things improve. If not, those quarterbacks should still be out there. I mean, it's not like any one of them are lighting the world on fire by any stretch of the imagination. So I would hold off for now.
Oh, I get it, but I am nervous that the change in OC is more detrimental to Tannehill than you are, because Arthur Smith was so good at getting those play actions and really ramping up the efficiency there. And now with somebody else, I fear that Tannehill's game has always relied on efficiency, and it's fading this year. I'd be okay dropping him for Burrow, but honestly, Cousins, he's looked so good that I feel like I always shit on Cousins.
Cousins
I think
is currently QB 13.
And it's not as if he has an insane slate of defenses he has to go up against either. I'd be okay with either of those two, quite frankly, because I know that the passing volume is going to be there for Burrow. That's why I say automatically, yes, I would drop him for Burrow. And with Kirk, I think he is the efficient Tannehill from last year and the year prior. So that's why I'd go with that.
All right. So you got yes and a no there, Matt. Follow your gut.
All right. Do we want to hop into this next, believe it or not?
Yes. Let's do it.
Man, let's stick with the quarterbacks. Why don't we? Lamar Jackson, who had a massive game last night on Monday Night Football. If you did not get a chance to watch that, go back and at least watch the highlights, from like the third quarter on, because it was incredible. Lamar Jackson outscores Tom Brady the rest of the season. Dustin, do you believe this or not?
Well, my initial gut reaction was like, no, I don't believe this. But I mean, when you look at their stats so far for the year, I mean, they're not that far off in fantasy scoring. They're only 4 points apart on the season. I mean,
QB2, QB3 respectively. Yep.
Where are you looking? Because I've
Fantasy
got
Pros.
Oh, see, I'm on fantasy data. We're looking at different things. Anyway, Tom is 1 and Lamar is 3. I mean, they're very close, regardless. Sure. Yeah, my initial thought was like, oh, no way, Tom's been killing it. But yeah, he's kind of dropped off a little bit these last couple weeks. He does have some tough defenses here for the rest of the season. He's got New Orleans a couple times. Washington, I expect to get better. Philadelphia is not the biggest slouch. Got Buffalo, where Baltimore, they got Cincy, Miami, Chicago, Pittsburgh. Defense hasn't been looking great. The Packers, Cincy again. So, I mean, I feel like Baltimore has a little bit better schedule as far as looking at their defensive matchups. While Tom has looked really good, and he's thrown 15 touchdowns to only 2 interceptions, and Lamar has 8 TDs and 3 INTs. Obviously, he makes it up with the rushing department. He's got over 340 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground. They're only averaging 0.7 points per game difference at this point after 5 weeks, which I would have never expected that. I honestly wouldn't have. And I know Lamar had this ginormous, huge week this last week, but yeah, I'm going to say I believe it. I believe it. I'm doing it.
All right. Put that stake in the sand there.
Yeah. I just, I just we've seen some chinks in the armor with that Tampa Bay team where Gronk was out. They've stumbled a little bit where they haven't looked terrible, but you just that Lamar upside. I mean, he's got such a safe floor with that rushing where if Tom has a bad game, you can't rely on that rushing to bail him out. Where Lamar, I mean, he can have a very good passing game, but he's always got that rushing upside as well, which gives him a very safe floor. So that's why I'm going to choose Lamar here.
Now, I dig that. I fully dig that. I think also we came into this offseason still a little timid about Tom Brady, as we always are, because every year as he gets older, we get more skeptical about him. But this is the highest year I've ever ranked Tom Brady. Like, this is the first time I've had him inside my top 10 since, he was in his quote unquote prime of his youth there. But what I do want to point out about Tom Brady, which is insane through this first 5 games, you called out he hasn't had Gronk for the last couple, so that has been a bit of a hindrance, but he's thrown for at least 40 pass attempts in all but one game. He's had 4 or more passing touchdowns in 3 games thus far. One of those where he had 0 touchdowns though, and that was against New England. And let's be honest, that New England game could have went to one of 2 extremes, and we shouldn't be completely shocked that it ended up the way that it did.
Right.
If Gronk comes back, Antonio Brown continues to look like a wide receiver 1C on that receiving core, it's tough to argue with his weapons, I guess. And they still don't have a good enough running game where it's going to, take away from his pass attempts. Lamar's game last night, if that didn't happen, if he has another, an average game from what he'd had previously, which is still good, don't get me wrong. I think this is a different conversation. I'm actually going to go I think Brady, unless he falls off a cliff here, which could very well happen.
I'm convinced he's a robot. I am. I mean, come on. He doesn't age. If anything,
he's a robot.
He's doing the Benjamin Button thing where he's getting younger as he's getting older here. He looks better than he ever has.
I don't know about that. Did you see that picture of him and Tony Dungy though, where they're staring into the abyss? Just I don't know what that was.
That goes back to my point. He's a robot.
Okay, fair enough. But yeah, if we don't expect him to fall off, it's tough because, yes, he has no rushing upside except for those lean-in, quarterback sneak touchdowns, and that's it. But I still actually think Brady could do it this year, so I think it's going to be freaking close, man.
I mean, this one is a tough one. I'm not going to lie. I mean, I could honestly go either way. And like I said, my initial gut instinct was to say Brady. One, because I'm tired of going, just betting against him after all these years. But I think, I'm still going to stick with Lamar, though. But this was a good one. This is a tough one.
This is a tough one. If you have either of them on your roster, start either of them, basically, and you're probably going to be fine. So no big deal. If somehow you have both in the super flex, just get ready to smell that championship ring. I don't know why I said smell. I could have said a lot of other things, but I went with smell there. Let's move on to the next example here. Dustin, believe it or not, let's move to the running backs. Joe Mixon has more than 2 top 10 weekly performances all season. I want to call out something here so far.
Okay.
Now, Joe Mixon was dinged up last week. He was working through the ankle injury when we saw him play our Packers, and he didn't do so hot. Okay. I mean, it was fine. He's currently the RB14 in PPR, according to Fantasy Pros. His weekly finishes, though. Week 1 was RB2, then RB36, RB30, RB23, RB33 this past week where he was playing through that ankle injury. He gets a really, really great matchup this week against the Lions. They're the worst against running backs for giving up fantasy points. So hypothetically, he could get a top 10 finish this week if he's even close to healthy. But beyond that, do you have faith that he can do it more?
Yes. I mean, again, going back to their schedule, they have a fairly soft defensive schedule. He's already had 1 top 10 week. He's getting the volume. As much as I like to bag on Joe Mixon, that, we've made it very clear he's not our favorite running back on this team. But with that offense, with the volume he's getting, assuming he comes back healthy, which I'm going to assume he'll get right. I don't see any reason why he can't get 2 more out of the next 12 weeks inside the top 10. I think that's a pretty easy one.
See, you say that, and I think that's why I put this one on there, because at RB14, and again with the dinged up week last week, you go, well, I mean, he's basically there anyways. I think his season ranking right now at RB14 is more indicative that running backs as a whole are such a fucking calamity that nobody can be consistent whatsoever. And I'm concerned. You said the volume, which he's definitely getting volume overall in terms of overall touches. He's 45th in targets at the position for running backs. He's amongst the likes of Alec Ingold for targets at the moment. That's a scary place to live. And if you're banking on the upside, I like to have the receiving work there. That's why it's honestly hard. Like, I'll give him Detroit if he's healthy. I will seed that. It's tough, even with a little bit softer schedule, to see me wanting to give him those top 10s. Even the Jets. I don't believe that even against the Jets, who have looked a little better, I want to say, on their behalf.
They've looked a little better, but
I still don't even want to give it to him, because if he's not getting the targets, it's like if he gets a 2-touchdown game, sure, it could happen. But it's a scary place to live.
It is.
All right. So we got one believe it and one might be forced to believe it.
All right. So we have another question in the chat here. So Darrell Williams or Devonta Booker? Lost Montgomery to IR and Cook is questionable.
Coming in from Blue to Bear. I love that handle so much. Darrell Williams or Devontae Booker? I'm going to lean Devontae Booker here. Supposing, of course, it sucks. I love Saquon so much. All I've wanted to see is Saquon Barkley do his thing. It's just not going to happen. I think Devontae Booker is weirdly a safer thing. I think that Jerick McKinnon is more involved with the Chiefs, and I might be the only person who believes that. But CEH, he was doing well, but he wasn't getting, again, targets there either. I don't know that Darrell Williams is going to, so I'd go Booker.
Yeah, I agree. While Darrell Williams could get the bulk of the carries, there's not going to be enough passing work to really make him viable, I don't think. So I'm right there with you. As long as Saquon is out this week, I would go with Devonta Booker.
Which, that at this point, sadly, seems like a foregone conclusion.
Probably,
so
but
sick of it. You know what I'm not sick of, though?
What's that?
Talking about Cordero Patterson. Let's do it again. Let's run it back. We talked about him for what felt like half of our show last week. So let's make this one quick, though. We do have to talk about him because it's just absurd. But Cordero Patterson, believe it or not, he finishes the season with more fantasy points than any other Falcons skill position player. So I'm removing Matt Ryan from the equation here, even though currently he is outscoring Matt Ryan.
He is.
Wild. Just a quick rundown. Patterson's got 102 fantasy points. Kyle Pitts, 61. Ridley, 59. Mike Davis, his running back compatriot, 57. What do you think, man? Can that hold up?
No, I don't believe it. I mean, at this point, we should think it could happen because it's been happening for 5 weeks here. But we finally saw Kyle Pitts get involved, and I know partially that was because Calvin Ridley was out and Russell Gage was out. But either Calvin Ridley or Kyle Pitts, probably both of them, will end up outscoring him by the end of the season. Calvin Ridley is just too good of a player to be held down as he has been. And I know there's been injured, but I love the story. I love what's happening here with Patterson. I just don't see it sustaining for an entire season at this point. So I'm going to say not.
Such relevant and timely jokes that we make on this show. I'm going to agree with you here. I'm going to say not. We said last week, start him until he fizzles. He's not fizzled yet, so keep plugging him in there. But I do agree eventually. I think it's going to be one or the other. Ridley or Pitts eventually overtakes him. I actually don't think it'll be both, but I can almost guess that one for sure will. If I had to pick right now, I actually think Kyle Pitts could be the guy. I'm a little scared for Ridley.
That's what I'm hoping for, only because I have more shares of Pitts than Ridley.
Sure. Yeah, and Ridley could absolutely have a get right second half of the season. But
absolutely. I mean, we've seen it. I mean, we've seen him just. He's one I don't discount anymore because I didn't think he was quite the real deal as everyone thought, and he proved me wrong year after year. So I quit betting against him at this point. So if anyone could do it, it could be Ridley. But yeah, I think you're right. It'll be one or the other. I don't know that the offense has quite enough firepower to sustain both of them at a super, super high level like that. But yeah, I expect Patterson to come crashing back down to earth.
Yeah. God, it would be something if he finished as a top 5 by this end of the season, just for the sheer madness of it. But yeah, not projecting that at all. Talk about freaking madness, man. Smooth transition. Believe it or not, Kadarius Toney emerges as a top 24 wide receiver the rest of season. If you watched him play this past week, you got a treat. He finished as the wide receiver 5 that week, despite getting ejected in the fourth quarter. He had 13 targets, 10 receptions, 189 yards, and no touchdowns, which that in and of itself is kind of outlandish. No touchdowns with all of those sweet, sweet yards. Do you think this is feasible? Is he the guy there now?
I'm going to say no. While I love the output that we saw, I think that's more of a function of there being no other offensive weapons for Daniel Jones to throw to. I mean, Kenny Galladay out, Sterling Shepard out, Darius Slayton out, Saquon Barkley out. I mean, yeah, you've got Evan Ingram, but I have never been a big
Kyle Rudolph.
Ingram. So it's just, I think it's just, yeah, he was doing what he's supposed to as a rookie. Yeah, he was drafted very high, and he was the only option. So yeah, they have to throw to someone. So yes, you saw a big game from him. I think the Kadarius Toney truthers finally got to see, the splash that they saw on his college tape and the production that he can have. But do I expect this to continue and have him be a top 24 wide receiver for the rest of the season? No, I don't expect that.
Fair. Now, what I do want to say is if Joe Judge, the coach of the Giants, is in his right mind, he would cede more work to Toney and move Galladay over to the side. Galladay has to become a complementary piece, I think, at that offense, because there's nowhere close to the same level of athleticism or being dynamic that Toney has to offer. And if Saquon's out for, I hope not, but if he's out for an extended amount of time, then you have to get somebody with big play potential more involved, and that is Toney. Top 24, it's a rough line. I probably could have dropped that down a little bit. I just wanted to see how much of an overreaction we could get from this last game. If I move that down to a more reasonable level, let's say, a wide receiver 3 for the rest of the year, can you buy
top
that?
36?
Yeah.
Maybe. I mean, that's a little bit more reasonable. I could get on board with that, I guess. I still wouldn't be super confident, I guess.
Yeah.
But
I mean, you're not going to get a 180-yard game from him likely for the rest of the year, but can he have enough big play potential to rise up? I think he could. I think 36 I'm comfortable with. 24 I'm not.
Right.
Yeah. So not as well. Thanks for bringing that back, man. Real blast from the past.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm good for. At least once an episode, I bring back a very old pop culture reference.
You had What's Up a couple of weeks ago, and now you're killing it with the Borat. So proud of you today.
Or you could say Wayne's World as well.
It's true. Yeah, you do kill it with the Wayne's World pretty often, actually. I'd say that's maybe your most popular pop culture reference at this point. Yeah. Do you think that's fair?
Fair enough.
We'll have to have an entire show about that at some point in the in the non-point scoring season.
Right.
But for now, believe it or not, Stephon Diggs retains his top 5 wide receiver status by the end of the season. It is sad if you drafted Diggs right now. He was going as the wide receiver 3 in ADP.
Oof.
He's currently sitting at wide receiver 25 through these first 5 weeks. Can he get back up into the top 5 going forward?
I think he can. I'm going to say believe it. So right now he is in the top 10 as far as targets on the season. Where it's been lacking is the completion, his reception percentage. He's down at 58%, which is not good. He's basically catching 1 out of every 2 passes, slightly more than that. So he's just not hitting on the big plays that we saw last year from Josh Allen. And he's only got 1 touchdown on the season too, which doesn't help. I expect that to get better and have some more touchdowns on the season. So yeah, I think he can retain his top 5 wide receiver status.
Yeah, I put this in here because I want to call him out as a trade target for a lot of people right now. If your wide receiver core is iffy, and you can make a move for him, I would do that in a heartbeat. In redraft, especially in Dynasty. I mean, in Dynasty for sure. If people are bummed by his recent performances, you go get him. But even in redraft, I don't expect this to be the case. You called it out. The targets are there. Josh Allen is an incredible quarterback, so I have no issues at all with this.
And then when you look at some of the other names in the top 12 here, I mean, you got Cooper Kupp, who's been lighting it on fire. He's number 1. At this rate, I'd expect him to stay in the top 12, but finish number 1 overall, probably not. Mike Williams, he's number 2 overall. You got Debo at number 5 overall. You got Marquise Brown, of all people, at number 6. You know,
give him his credit. Marquise Brown is doing some damn things, man.
He is. But do you honestly expect him to finish number 6 overall at the end of the season?
No, he could be a fringe wide receiver 1. Yeah,
he could be. I mean, Jamar Chase is having an unbelievable start to his rookie career. I mean, that could fall off a little bit. I mean, there's just a handful of players where it's like, yeah, they're having incredible starts to the season so far. And yes, we're a quarter of the way through the season at 5 weeks in, but I mean, that could drop off. Could that all stay the same? Absolutely. But I don't expect some of those players to be in the top 12 by the end of the season.
Yes.
So that's why I think, Diggs can elevate up into that top 5.
I agree. And just the only thing I'll add on, his average depth of target, 13 yards. He's getting good quality fantasy targets. And eventually that has to level out.
It'll translate.
The talent is plainly too good. So, yep, we both believe it that'll happen for Stephon Diggs. Now, this one's a little, we'll see. I gotta bring him up. Dawson Knox.
Oh, absolutely.
Holy fucking shit. Dawson
it's
Knox
time. It's happening.
Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo. Dawson Knox, let's say, believe it or not, he is a reliable top 8 guy. Week to week. I'm talking a little bit of consistency here. That's what I want to get to with this question. His weekly finishes thus far, they've just been building up and up and up. Started off tight end 21, then tight end 12, tight end 9, tight end 2, and tight end 4. So is he reliable for you as a sort of set it and forget it tight end now? That's why I put the top 8 there.
Right. I think so. Only for the fact that, I mean, if you're not drafting one of the top tight ends, it's kind of a crapshoot after, your Kelsey and Waller at this point. So yeah, why not take a guy that has that touchdown upside? I mean, he's scoring a touchdown a week at this rate. Will that stay up and will he have 17 touchdowns at the end of the season? Probably not. But you like the fact that he is being more involved in the offense this year, which we had not seen. He's actually healthy. And, talking about Stephon Diggs, maybe that's where some of that production is, kind of shifted over. But I would still, there's worse options out there. I mean, he's been producing so far. So yeah, I think he could be a top 8 guy for the rest of the season on a week-to-week basis.
Yeah, This is where we're going to disagree here, because I put him in specifically after Stephon Diggs, because my thought is, as that touchdown positively regresses, I hate that phrase, for Stephon Diggs, the main person who's going to suffer here, I do think, is Dawson Knox. And 40% plus of his fantasy points have come from the touchdowns so far. I mean, that's probably true for a good chunk of tight ends, except those tight ends tend to stay further down in the rankings when that's the case there. I think as it shifts a little bit more over to him, to Diggs, that is, that it takes away from Knox. It's tough, man. I felt like I was a year and a half too early on Dawson Knox, because I had him in every dynasty league, and I cut bait because I'm an idiot before this year. Maybe I'm wrong, and I hope that I am. I hope that Cole Beasley suffers more and Dawson Knox gets to retain his status there, but I just don't know that that's the case. And weekly top 8 guy, I know you said it's kind of a crapshoot, but give me guys like Dalton Schultz over him right now. I think I'd rather have, unfortunately. So I'm going to say no, but if you have him, just enjoy the boom weeks that he's definitely going to give you.
Yep, absolutely. All right, one last one, Jake.
All right, let's wrap it up with a hometown favorite. Big Bobbert Tonyan bounces back in the second half of the season. Believe it or not.
Bounces back meaning what? Like what do you mean for bounce back?
I left this a little vague because it's hard to assign a value to him right now. But let's say that he bounces back to be close to what he was last year. I don't mean a top 3 guy necessarily, but I mean he gives you enough production to warrant starting him on a routine basis in the second half of the season.
So would you say, like we did for Dawson Knox, top 8?
Sure, that's fair, although my expectations are lower. Let's do top 10 for Bob, because I think that's more reasonable for him.
Oof, I'm gonna say no. As much as it pains me, now that the Packers have Randall Cobb back in the fold, he's been getting more and more involved as he's been learning the offense here throughout these weeks. Devontae is just a target machine. Oh, yeah. You got Aaron Jones doing Aaron Jones things. So yeah, I think Big Bob last year, that was kind of an outlier season. While his catch percentage is still outstanding right now, and I think he's got a couple touchdowns. It's unfortunate I got to scroll so far down here on the list to find him. So he's only got 1 touchdown on the season, where he made a lot of his hay last year. Was he had an insane number of touchdowns on very few yards. So and we're seeing that now. He's not getting those touchdowns because I think, like I said, Randall Cobb is being more involved. Aaron Jones, Devontae. I mean, Rodgers is going to go to the guys he loves and trusts. Now that he's got Randall Cobb back as his binky, that's adversely affecting Big Bob. So no, I don't see him bouncing back the second half of the season. Could he finish top 10? Yes, but I don't expect it.
Oh, that makes me sad. That makes me so sad. My hope here is actually similar points that you made about Dawson Knox is why I think that, that's why I'm hesitant about Knox, is because so much of his comes on touchdowns.
Fair enough.
What I'm hoping for with Bob, and it's just a hope, is that, the Packers have had this makeshift offensive line now, of course, with Bakhtiari being out and then Elton Jenkins being out, that he's been forced into a blocking role a lot more. My hope is when those guys finally come back, which please let it be soon, within the next, 3 or so weeks, let those guys come back and let him be freed up. Because Rodgers did love him last year. I think he had like the highest QBR of any receiving option targeted in the NFL last year, something crazy like that. I don't think Rodgers forgets that. That's what I'm hanging my hat on. For right now, he's free to drop in a redraft, of course. Don't hold him. But, if you got him in Dynasty, I think you can expect better days.
Okay. Well, let's move on then. And is there any other players you want to touch on real quickly here, or that about does it for tonight?
I don't want to touch a single another player except for our starts of the week.
All right. So starts of the week. I'll go first here since you're drinking beer. I have got Jacoby Myers versus the Dallas Cowboys. Now, I know Diggs has been a ball hawk there for that Dallas defense all season long. Is he going to be on Jacoby Myers, though? Or is he going to be on Nelson Aguilar? I mean, it's tough to say who he's going to be, shadowing or who he's going to be going up against. But I do like the opportunity there. And I think it's going to be the Jacoby Myers breakout week where he gets his touchdown finally. And yeah, so start up Jacoby. I mean, he's been so involved with that offense. The only thing that's been holding him back is that lack of touchdown production. And that's got to change eventually. So I think this is the week. He's been getting the targets. It seems like him and Mac Jones have a pretty good thing going so far. He's kind of emerging as that number one option on that offense for Mac Jones. So that's why I have him for my start of the week this week.
I like it. I like it a lot. Jacoby is, dare I say, he's like a top 20 guy for me this week for receivers. I love it. I love this start of the week so much that it makes me hate mine a little bit more.
Oh.
And it's pretty obvious, honestly. This was a hard show sheet to put together. I took it easy on myself with this. I'm going James Robinson versus the Dolphins. The Dolphinsons. Boy, I tell you, don't live next to those Dolphinsons. They're up all night. No, the Dolphins are terrible against the rushing game. They just are. They're second worst for fantasy points, which is actually second best for you if you're starting the running back against them. And even though Urban Meyer did Urban Meyer dumb shit last week, and he brought in Carlos Hyde for these weird packages that ended up totally burning them, Robinson himself was the clear workhorse. And that was never more evident than last week. So if you're weirded out by Urban Meyer, I get it, but don't be for James Robinson this week. He's like an easy top 6 running back this week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I actually don't mind that. I think that's going to be a good play. He should be plenty well involved in that offense. So, yeah, I like that.
Woo! Woo! Do we dare wrap this episode up with another beer bet, Dustin?
Oh, absolutely. So,
right.
Jake, this one's provided by you since we do alternate week to week here. So why don't you let the folks know out there know what the bet is, and I will decide which side I want.
Perfect. So we got a quarterback duel on the horizon here. We talked about Lamar Jackson earlier in the episode. We've got his Baltimore Ravens going against Justin Herbert and the Chargers. So what I want to know, Dustin, Lamar Jackson versus Justin Herbert. Total. That was a good burp. And it came at the most
that was nice.
time. Total. I can't even replicate it now. Damn, that was so good. Total fantasy points. Lamar or Justin? Who you got?
Ooh. We're going to go total points.
Mm-hmm. No yardage bullshit from me this week.
No, I am going to say Herbert.
Herbert against the Ravens. Yep. I guess that means I'll have to take the guy who put up 400 passing yards this past week and hope that he can do it again. Let's lock it in. You've got the Herbster.
Yep.
I've got the L-Jacks. And we're going to hope that you wind up in the same predicament that you were in at the start of our show.
I hope not. I don't want to go 0-3 to start these for the season. So that would be pretty bad. So yeah, here's hoping I win just because I want to see you take a shot for once. But yeah, if not, it makes for an interesting night. Let's put it that way.
That's true. I feel left out at this point.
Well, you could always join me. You don't have to just sit and watch.
No. That's all right.
All right. Any last words here, Jake, before we sign off?
No, sir.
Nope. All right. So this is your weekly reminder, folks. If you're listening before your waivers have run, make sure you're checking your waiver wire for drop players. You never know who's going to be dropped out there, especially with all these injuries happening. If you can afford to pick up a player that's injured, that's only going to be out for a few weeks, pick them up. Hold on to him. Like George Kittle. If someone's like, I can't afford to have George Kittle sit on my bench for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever he's going to be out, pick him up.
Pick him up.
Yeah, if you got the bench space, go for it. Yeah. And then also we're finally starting bye weeks here. So please, 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 folks, take out players that are on the Falcons, the Saints, the Jets, or the Niners, because you're not going to get any points from them sitting on your roster this week. So
But you will be sad.
yes, you will be very sad. So yeah, make sure you're checking your bye weeks and taking those players out, especially with the Thursday night game coming up here very quickly.
Yeah,
and that'll
man.
do it for tonight's show, folks. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you to everybody tuning in and watching us on the live stream here and commenting on the chat. And if you audiophiles out there listening to this after the fact, if you're like, hey, I like that they interact with us, come join us every Tuesday. We're here. We're doing it. We're live. You can interact with us live. You throw questions out there. We'll answer them on the show live for you. So check us out on YouTube. We have our YouTube channel out there where you can catch all of our episodes and
some extra bits.
And
by
some
the
extra
way,
bits.
we have
Yeah,
like some
Jake-
extra bits out there. We have like random videos. We have actually useful videos too, but we have some pretty
Fun stuff.
out
because
there.
we don't like to take ourselves too seriously here.
No.
Fantasy football is supposed to be fun.
That's right.
That's right. So yeah, go do that. Give us a rate and review on whatever podcast platform you listen to us on. Give us a subscribe.
Yeah, give us a damn review, you guys. If you send us a screenshot of these reviews, I think I put this out there a couple of weeks back. Send us a screenshot of the review you leave us. I will do a personalized trash talk video for you to one of your league mates in the celebrity voice of your choosing. Just leave us the review, send it off to us at Drinking Fantasy or to either of us on Twitter.
Well, you can do it for either of us. I will not be doing celebrity impersonations. I will forward those on to Jake. No, I'm no good at that. That's your thing. I don't want to steal your thunder, really.
You don't know that yet.
I don't want to step on your cloud. So, but yeah, go out and give us a rate and review, please. Give us a subscribe on YouTube. Click the little bell. You'll be alerted every time that we go live, which is what you really want, because let's be honest, the live show is the best show. Find us all over the social medias. You can find Jake at Jake Trowbridge on Twitter, doing his thing, all of his impersonations, all the fun stuff out there, and lots of good fantasy football content. Let's be honest. You can find me at FF Dusty Dog. I'm kind of doing a thing out there. But if you do a DM me or hit me up or tag me, I will answer any questions you have. And then you can find the podcast show at Drinking Fantasy, where we will answer any of your start, sit questions. Any trade questions, we're there for you. We have the answers. And until next week, folks, keep drinking and talking fantasy football.
Cheers, FFers.